everyone, welcome to the March 2017 Friday Flashback pay-per-view review from the CC Network. I'm Fred, your ever-reliable host as always, and in today's wrestling event Rewind, we rejoin the bi-monthly Big Four series, kicking off 2003's offerings. And we start with the 2003 Royal Rumble, the first Rumble event I ever bought on DVD back in the day. Since Survivor Series, a lot had gone down, and it's quite crazy to think. We had Scott Steiner debuting on his first brand show after taking a long time to decide on Raw or SmackDown. The Dudley Boys officially reunited, Team Angle got formed, Paul Heyman had a new client and a new champion. Ooh, crazy stuff. Raw celebrated its 10th anniversary award show, which was very tacky. Vince McMahon was piling pressure on Eric Bischoff to compete with SmackDown in the case of flagging ratings, and he had 30 days to do it. We had brand new champions on both brands, and everything seemed to be going in quite a competitive direction, because even though Bischoff and Stephanie's rivalry had simmered down since Survivor Series, I'm going to tell you right now, it was still there, and honestly, this brand warfare looked to be hitting another big climax as the winner of the Rumble would main event the first WrestleMania on American soil in 2 years. They wanted to be the man at the top of the mountain. Well, we're going to see how this event plays out, because we know it is well regarded and not so for some of its matches here today. Well, let's hope they're not as bad as people say, and let's hope the good ones are as good as they say, because this could be a very fun show to review. WWE Royal Rumble 2003 took place on the 19th of January 2003 at the Fleet Center, now known as the TD Garden, in Boston, Massachusetts, with 15,338 people turning out to see the first post-brand split Rumble match happen. And the Fleet Center has held a lot of WWE's events over the years, especially when it comes to the Big Four, because it's held at least one of all four of them. It's pretty mad. It's held the 2008 and 2013 Survivor Series, 2006's SummerSlam, 2011's Rumble, and WrestleMania 14. Alongside this one, showing a quite decent history at Big Four level. It debuted in wrestling with a 1997 WCW Nitro taping, with its Boston Brawl event following in 98, with another Nitro taping coming the same year. However, it has also become, in time, one of WWE's flagship locations. I love it so much. I've already mentioned all the Big Four shows. That's not even counting the King of the Rings, Night of Champions, Money in the Bank, TLCs, and Hell in a Cell pay-per-views they've hosted over the years, alongside a myriad of Raw, SmackDown, and ECW tapings too. They love this place. Seriously to God, they do. Nonetheless, Falling Apart by Trust Company is the theme song for this event, and I love it so. Let's dive right into this review. We kick things off with something quite peculiar, as Brock Lesnar took on the Big Show in a Royal Rumble qualifier. That's right, the winner of this match would be granted a place into the Rumble match later on in the evening. Crazy, right? Now, following his WWE title loss at Survivor Series, Brock was on a mission to get revenge on Heyman for his unbelievable portrayal doing so, and costing Big Show the title at Armageddon. Lesnar's loose temper made him a few more enemies, primarily in Matt Hardy and Shannon Moore, who were on the end of quite a few beatings during this month period. Following his loss to Chris Benoit in a number one contendership match, the Big Show firmly set his sights back on Brock Lesnar at the behest of Paul Heyman, as he bragged a lot that Lesnar could not beat the Big Show, and that and the Big Show is the best because he's the only person who could beat Lesnar 1, 2, 3 in that ring, which is logical, because as of this point, he was the only person who'd done so, and he wanted to challenge Lesnar to a match at the Rumble for a place in the match itself, taunting Lesnar's toughness, believing he'd be too afraid to accept. With Matt Hardy and Shannon Moore attacking Lesnar, it led to a destructive and easy victory later on in the evening, with Lesnar solidifying his power, while Big Show just couldn't stand up to him in the weeks that followed. Of course Lesnar had accepted, because it's Brock freaking Lesnar. He wanted to get his hands on Heyman and on Big Show for what had happened. Stephanie McMahon even highlighted Brock's importance and her personal bias, because she wanted him to win the Rumble and say to Raw, SmackDown is just simply better, because we have the most dominant superstar in the world right now, and you can't do a thing about it. All seems pretty good, right? Well, hopefully it will make for something pretty decent, because the Survivor Series match, if I remember correctly, was a pretty good affair. In a result, though, that was very predictable and everyone saw coming, Brock Lesnar finally got his revenge on Big Show, defeating him in 6 minutes and 29 seconds, giving him the final spot open in the Royal Rumble match. And the thing is, this match really isn't that special, but it did its job in making sure that Lesnar wrapped up this feud, because it was getting a little long-winded at this point. It wasn't a psychology-richer match as the Survivor Series bout was, in actually about a minute and a half less of the time, but all I've got to say, with a little more speed and a bit more momentum shifting and actually a little more time to balance things out, it was made to be quite an acceptable and watchable match. And while it was quite predictable, it tried to keep Big Show strong in spite of how good Lesnar had to look coming out of it. And honestly, it had to make Heyman look foolish, because who the hell would bank against Brock Lesnar? Even back then. It doesn't really make sense, but it happens. Storyline decisions don't make sense all the time, do they? And for that, overall, I feel the match was fine. It did its job, but it wasn't the kind of athletic barnstormer I expect an opener to be. And inevitably, though, I'm going to give it 1.5 stars. It's an okay match, but it's got Big Show and Brock Lesnar in it, so what more do you honestly expect? Not that much, but an acceptable start to the show. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, we have the Raw World Tag Team Championship match, and it features the Dudley Boys taking on Lance Storm and William Regal. Now, for a mid-card feud for the Tag Team Championships, I wouldn't have expected this much build. But my God, there's a lot going on. From the end of November, or the middle of November, right through to now, the middle of January. There's a good solid month and a half worth of build here. This is ridiculous. Nonetheless, the Dudleys reunited at Survivor Series, and they seemed to be on the up. They nearly won the tag team titles from Jericho and Christian, but thanks to the antics of Bischoff's left-hand man, Chief Morley, they couldn't get it done. They got revenge on Jericho and Christian and continued to feud with them until the Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match for the titles at Armageddon, which both teams lost to Goldust and Booker T. Crazy, right? And in that time that afterwards, the Dudleys set their sights onto the other team I haven't mentioned in that match, Lance Storm and William Regal, who had cheated via brass knucks to defeat them on Raw the next night. This upset Spike Dudley, who, for being a good sportsman and complaining that they cheated, was put into a match with Batista where Bubba Ray and Devon were not allowed to interfere, because if they did, they would be suspended on the spot. Yes, they didn't interfere, but that didn't stop Batista mauling Spike to death. Now, Bischoff was already on a power trip that night, okay? Not only had he screwed with the Dudleys, but the fact is, he'd also put JR and King in a match, a tag team match, with Lance Storm and William Regal. You know why? Because there's secret camera footage that had them slagging Bischoff off. And you know Bischoff, he loves himself some power. He's a dictator. He doesn't like being criticized. And of course, JR and King were being obliterated. But the Dudleys decided to come in and make the save. And JR managed to pick up the win using brass knucks. Wow, good old JR, using good dirty southern tactics to win. I say southern tactics, but then again Regal's born in the north of England, so I got that completely wrong. And due to their interference, however, Bischoff was not happy, as he scolded the team and punished them by placing them in a handicap match against 3 Minute Warning and Batista. That's right, 4-on-2, and they were defeated with ease. But the fact is, the referee, realising how horrible this position was for them, wanted to show leniency, but Bischoff told him, look, for the love of God, you are not doing this. And Bischoff just told him, stay back and let the destruction happen. It was pretty horrible. And to add even more to this, Booker T made fun of Bischoff's desire for total power and got summarily punished by put the tag team championships on the line with Goldust against Storm and Regal, and this makes it even worse. Chief Morley was the referee. God damn it. And following a Regal attack to the existing official, Morley himself was then knocked out, only for him to pull out the third official who was trying to make the pinfall out, giving Regal and Storm the ability to win the titles, following brass knucks again. And oh boy, Booker and Goldust were laid out flat and the titles had changed hands. On the final Raw before the pay-per-view, the Dudleys beat Morley down backstage, causing Bischoff to fire them, thinking, you know what, Vince McMahon's got a performance evaluation, and I don't want to be seen as a lenient leader, so I'm going to fire you guys for this. However, they teased to go to SmackDown. He's like, you know what, I don't want to see you going to SmackDown. We are going to suspend you instead. Vince went out to do his performance evaluation, but Bubba Ray Dudley interfered, telling him that Bischoff had lost control and he doesn't respect the talent. McMahon then decided to agree, reinstated the Dudleys, and gave them a title shot against Storm and Regal at the Royal Rumble. And he wants to hear Devon get the tables, which is crazy, seeing McMahon show support for a team. Well, hell, he put everything against Bischoff at the time, and this just made certain of it, right? Well, after all that, the damn Dudleys did exact their revenge by hitting Storm with Regal's brass knucks, yes, a heel tactic by a face team, following Morley attempting to interfere to get the pin and win the titles in 7 minutes and 24 seconds. Now, considering the 2-month build here, you'd be expecting a lot more than what actually happened, as the build-up was much better than the match. But this was just a simple tag bout, where the champions were transitional ones, as the Dudleys got their revenge and dominated in the process. And Chief Morley coming out to liven up this match for story purposes was fine, and the fans were into it enough to give it some consistent energy, and it was a finish that, while dirty by the faces, was welcomed. The pace was just too stop-start, though, as momentum shifted way too much, and very little offense actually came from it, but at least it just had enough to be seen as something passable. And the Dudley Boys' storytelling in the latter stages did help, I guess. You know, it's fine, but nothing spectacular, and you know what? It's a 1-star match. It's nothing more that I really need to say, but this just was something very flat and a little bland, but at least the Dudleys got the championships, right? That was what this was for. However, I will say, considering McMahon's statement, they didn't get the tables. Why didn't they get the tables? Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to the next one, because this was just another disappointment, really. And speaking of disappointments, everyone, this is up there. Oh my god. The first ever stepdaughter versus stepmother match between Tori Wilson and Dawn Marie. And I don't want to talk about this. I remember watching this when it happened, when I started getting into wrestling. And I questioned how rubbish it was then, and I still do now. How this feud went from October 2002 to now, January 2003, and warranted 2 matches on pay-per-view, I have absolutely no idea. It baffles me, but this feud, oh my god. Nonetheless, Dawn Marie dating Tori Wilson's real dad. That ain't an actor, everybody. It makes it even more weird. They had a match at No Mercy 2002, which Tori won. I'll be reviewing that in detail next year, when No Mercy 02 gets done with this show. Oh god. And the fact is, Al and Dawn continued to date until the January 2nd edition of SmackDown, where Al proposed. Oh boy, much to her daughter's displeasure, the next week we got the glance of the honeymoon, where Al died due to having too much sex. I mean, oh god, it's just so horrible. And the feud reached its climax, pun wholly intended, after a horrible funeral segment which included some horrible acting by both women, as the match was announced for the Rumble to settle a feud that was seen as more disturbing and unsettling than absolutely intense. It was just unsettling television, and oh god. Oh god. You know what's even more annoying? Not only did this get a middle of the card match on one of the big 4 pay-per-views, it also got a video build-up package. So we actually had to rewatch all this stuff. Oh god. Oh, Jesus. Nonetheless, Tori got the win in 3 minutes and 36 seconds off a swinging net breaker. Now, this was a train wreck. The match and the storyline. The match felt a lot longer than the 3 minutes it suggested because it was very slow, it was really one-sided in Dawn Marie's favour to ensure that victory for Tori just wasn't realistic at all. And it was very sloppy at times. Some of the moves executed were very simple and very, very sloppily done. And the crowd didn't care. I didn't care. I just did not want to have to face this storyline again. It was just... I'll say this. This match could have been done a lot better and made a lot more sense. Tori should have just gone out there and torn Dawn Marie a new one. She shouldn't have been nervous. Sure, she can be a little grief-stricken, but unleash it in rage. Showcase your disdain for this woman, okay? But we didn't really see that. Dawn dominated from the get-go. I liked the idea that she worked the arm of Tori a little and actually gave the match some intensity by slapping her repeatedly and shouting at her. There's at least some story, but it was Dawn who did it. It didn't make sense, but I'll give the mark where it's due, but that's all this match had. Tori did deserve to win it, but the way she went about it, just winning off a simple neckbreaker in a very small amount of time, it made it feel pointless. Because not just that, Tori got the win 4 months prior, so this doesn't make much sense. And the story didn't either, and oh, Jesus Christ, it was horrible. It was horrible. It is a 0-rated match. And if you want to see what a 0-rated match at the bottom of the barrel really does look like, go look for this one. Jesus Christ, considering the build-up, it didn't need. The feud here did not need all of this baggage and the build-up for it. And it was overkill for such a stupidly simple match. Let's just move on. I'm pretty sure we've reached the bottom of the barrel for this show. And with that statement, I prove it 100% wrong. Because you all know what match is coming up next. The Raw main event. The World Heavyweight Championship match between Triple H and Scott Steiner. Oh my days, this is an interesting one. Now, Triple H regained the World Heavyweight Championship at Armageddon following a brutal 3 stages of hell match against Shawn Michaels, and he planned a lavish celebration to highlight that he finally defeated his rival once and for all. But Scott Steiner, who decided to come to Raw following a horrible tactic of highlighting that because Stephanie McMahon wouldn't sleep with him or kiss him or basically be all over him like some female arm candy, he would go to Raw and he would sign his contract in the main event of the post-Armageddon show. But Chief Morley had already booked the celebration in place, which made Steiner very angry, and he said that Triple H will not be the main event as long as he is around. Now, Bischoff was worried, and inevitably Morley put Triple H in the main event and just said, look, Steiner, you'll have it as well, but can we just let Triple H have his moment? And Steiner relented, you know what, I'll give him his time. But the minute Triple H was done self-praising himself, which he would do because he's an egotistical prick, Steiner came out there and ruined the celebrations because he does. And he stated to Bischoff's face that this contract means I have a title shot immediately, with Triple H thinking, you know, what the hell, you earn the title. Says the guy who was given the title 3 or 4 months prior, but I digress. The fact is, however, Scott Steiner was in a very provocative move, highlighting that he came to Raw to fight the best and be the best, and if he wasn't going to get that, he was going to go straight out of the WWE and walk. Bischoff, thinking, you know what, just accept the damn match for God's sake. Accept the damn match. And, well, Triple H has said he's beaten everybody, well, except Big Papa Pump, and Steiner highlighted that Triple H had no balls, a statement which led the game to accept the match, and then, of course, Steiner, knowing he'd got the title bout, signed the contract and saved Bischoff from having a heart attack. Now, the next week, it was officially confirmed while the game was still pissed off from the fact he'd been emasculated by Scott Steiner, and he wanted to antagonise Freakzilla a bit, with Flair telling him just to wait till the Rumble to do it. Well, you know Triple H, he'll ignore sage advice from the 16-time world champion, as he challenged Steiner to an arm wrestling contest that nearly brawled out into chaos following Steiner's victory. Then they went off the next week and had a pose-off, which Triple H won the majority of due to the fact that he had a crooked panel of judges who then attacked Steiner afterwards following a push-up contest which Steiner was obviously winning. Look at those muscles. From there, the Raw before the show, Steiner and Triple H got a little sick of having these menial contests, and they said, you know what, we're going to fight each other. And Triple H, in deciding that he would, stated that, just like every challenger, Steiner would not win. Well, there was a giant brawl, and Steiner ripped off Game's suit completely. The Game lost his suit to Steiner, again being emasculated. And I'm going to say this, I kind of trawled through this because it's not really the build-up that I should really be talking about. Because the thing is, there isn't that much action here. These guys barely wrestled in that time. It was crazy. But did the match have more action than the build-up? But the thing is, the answer is plainly no, as Triple H got disqualified by hitting Steiner with a sledgehammer after 18 minutes and 34 seconds of some of the worst in-ring work that I have ever seen. And you all know, if you've seen this match, how terrible it is. This match is infamous for being utterly lifeless and very empty. And even with Triple H and Ric Flair trying to make this match feel like it's worth something, it just does not work. I hadn't seen this match for a long time, and when I was younger, I just thought, oh, this is just Scott Steiner just being an overly powerful guy. Even though he's quite small, this is what big wrestlers do. But the thing is, looking back on it now with my critical mindset in place, I forgot how utterly lifeless, empty, significantly terrible this was. The thing is, this match only lasted 20 minutes with nothing more than a few power moves from the challenger as the basis for the entire damn contest. Steiner dominated. Triple H oversold everything. Every strike, every suplex, everything. Triple H was made to look like a ragdoll in here. And the pace was mind-numbingly slow. Seriously, Scott Steiner hit one move, walked around for a bit, hit another move. It had no sense. No sense. And the crowd turned on this very quickly. About halfway through, they were realizing this is terrible. They then booed Steiner throughout. At the end of the match, when Steiner hit Triple H with a sledgehammer and got him in the Steiner recliner, they were booing the face. They hated the performance, and you can see why, because Steiner was sloppy, horrible, botching everything. It was abject. It was the most abject wrestling performance they'd probably ever seen in their lives at that point. And he was so out of breath, so blown up. How he was still standing after all that was unbelievable. And I love overhead belly-to-belly suplexes. You guys know it's one of my favourite moves in all of wrestling. I love it when Big E does it a lot, as you know by modern-day product standards. But Steiner, every move, pretty much, was an overhead belly-to-belly. And if it wasn't, it was a standard suplex or a German. It was nothing. The moveset was so small. It made me want to punch him, because it made me hate a move that I love. And, oh God, just, Steiner barely took a bump too. He barely took a bump. And not just that, Triple H got busted open with the leather side of the championship. He got busted open. There was blood in this thing when there wasn't even deserving to be any. It's, oh my God, it's crazy. And the fact that it ended on a DQ finish was even more horrible, because the fans would have thought, you know what, Triple H just beat him up at the end and finished it. We know you were going to do that. No, they noticed with the DQ there was going to be a second match, and they did not appreciate it. Jesus Christ. God. This match is a horror to sit through, and it's understandable why. This is a pile of shit. This is one of the worst wrestling matches I have ever seen, and I've reviewed some horrible matches from December to Dismember, Bad Blood 97, and probably a few other crap ones too in the Friday Flashback series, and also from all the pay-per-view reviews I've done since I started doing YouTube 7 years ago. But the thing is, this was horrible. This was on another level of crap, of rubbish, of shit. This match was terrible. And I don't mean to have to swear all the time, but when you realise you spent 18 minutes, actually 20 plus, including the build-up package, the entrances, everything, to watch this, and it comes through so badly, I can't help myself. It's just horrible. It deserves minus ratings. I would break my scale to do it, but the fact is I don't. It gets a 0, but you know, if you want to see what the bottom of the wrestling barrel looks like in terms of really rubbish matches, this is the one you need to see. If you want to torture yourself to watch this, go right ahead and do so, but I will not recommend it. We've had 2 okay matches to kick off this show, and now we've had 2 zeros. Surely this show has to improve somewhere. Thankfully, after that shit show, we reach the SmackDown main event with 2 of the world's best wrestlers fighting for the WWE Championship as the incumbent champion Kurt Angle took on the Canadian crippler Chris Benoit. Now, following his title victory, Angle thanked Brock Lesnar for the run-in and promised the next big thing, a title shot on next week's SmackDown. But later in that evening, Stephanie McMahon pressured him to reveal a little something that we didn't know about, and that was that he'd aligned with Paul Heyman. Jesus Christ, Kurt Angle turned heel. Insane! And he shocked the entire WWE audience with that, as it was all part of Heyman's plan to keep Lesnar away from the championship, suggesting that, well, Angle believed he deserved an agent because he's the best, and therefore he gets one, while having Big Show for protection too. Lovely. And as a result, Lesnar was not best pleased that he'd been double-crossed again. I didn't mention that earlier, for obvious reasons, until his anger out on the new champion following a non-title match with Benoit by F5ing Angle leg first into a steel ring post, causing a ligament injury. The next week, Angle came out realising, you know what, I can't rely on Big Show to do all this. I need a contingency plan to protect me while showcasing my brand as a technical wrestling marvel to the world. And he picked up and unveiled Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin, colloquially known as Team Angle, to everyone, with that amazing catchphrase, what we do is wrestling, that's what we do best. Love it, love it, love it. Good stuff. Now, Benoit, following his part in this whole Angle-Lesnar situation, was put in a #1 contendership match against Big Show, which he won, meaning he'd face the Olympian at the Rumble. Now, Angle's idea was for him to face Show at the Rumble, so it all became an all Lesnar, an all Heyman affair. That didn't happen, which of course made Angle very, very angry, as him and Team Angle and the Big Show assaulted the crippler afterwards, with Angle himself using his crutches to choke Benoit out in the aisleway. Now, Angle had highlighted that he and his team are accomplished amateur wrestlers and former champions, while Benoit has done absolutely nothing, and the Canadian must be scared to be facing against such quality. Benoit, however, believed he was not only better than Angle, and based on some of their matches in the past, it's an actual proven fact he could state that, but he had what it took to finally achieve his lifelong dream and become the champion. And his ruthless aggression and desire to put Angle down following the weeks of attacks did come to a head on the final SmackDown before this event, as he locked in the crippler crossface on Angle, but refused to release it, causing a DQ in a match. He then hits Angle's damaged leg with his own crutch, lovely, before beating the piss out of him with it, before Team Angle made the save. And while he had the advantage now, could the crippler get it done 3 days later? Well, this is what we'd have to find out, wouldn't we? Now, this match is going to get extra in-depth analysis. You know it is. It's Benoit versus Angle, and I have waited so long to do it. This is going to be a good one, ladies and gentlemen. Benoit goes right for Angle, but Benjamin and Haas stop him. Now, Angle is not wearing much, apart from some tape on his knee, and inevitably, Benjamin and Haas are out there to try and make sure that Angle gets the upper hand. But Mike Chioda says otherwise, though. He has Haas and Benjamin removed from ringside. This is going to be a one-on-one fight, and I cannot wait to go in depth with this. Let's get to it. We start things off with a collar elbow tie-up as Benoit goes for the sharpshooter, but Angle weasels out of it. Back in the ring, Benoit puts a side headlock and whips out. Angle grabs the leg, but Benoit goes for a dropkick. Off another whip, Benoit is locked in a sleeper, but hits an arm drag to get out of it. Goes off a dragon screw into a leg lock to focus on Angle's injured knee. Love it. They tussle before Benoit is put into a post shoulder first, which Angle takes advantage with by nailing that surgically repaired neck and shoulder, followed by a snap suplex for 2. Angle lays in some punches punches, but Benoit goes for some chops, backing Angle into the corner with punches of his own. The whip is then countered, but Benoit hits a boot to the head and a kitchen sink for 2. Benoit whips Angle's sternum first into the turnbuckle, followed by chops and knees to the gut. Angle reverses and hangs Benoit up on the ropes. Benoit hits a hot shot to get Angle down, and then Benoit keeps him on the apron and delivers a sick looking apron DDT that made me jump out of my seat to take the Olympian down. He puts him back in the ring, but Angle kicks out at 2. Benoit goes for the swan dive headbutt, but Angle rolls out of the way. But he's still dazed from that DDT. He can't take advantage of it. He tries to hit for an Angle slam, but that's counted into a sharpshooter, with Angle writhing in pain, and his leg must be in absolute agony right there. Jesus Christ, he crawls desperately and manages to make it to the ropes. Angle gets up and counters another whip and delivers a nice overhead belly-to-belly suplex, which was much better than Steiner's ones, that's for sure, as he throws Benoit to ringside and hangs him up chin first on a barricade. Angle takes the chance to get a kick of Benoit's neck before putting the Rabid Wolverine back into the ring and delivering a clothesline for 2. A snapmare and a choke with a body scissors then follow, and the crowd, who were respectfully quiet for the contest to start with, start to really get hot for Benoit as they will him on. They really want him to win here. The crippler breaks the hold, but Angle tries to go right for it again, but Benoit rolls through off an arm drag, but is then hit by another overhead belly to belly and a back suplex for 2, before going right back to the chokehold and scissors for Angle. Benoit elbows out, but once again Angle goes back to him. They run off a whip and both hit clotheslines together, taking them both out. They get up together. Benoit unleashes a lot of chops and some takedowns before the German suplexes. Angle switches into a suplex of his own before Benoit switches into another of his own. He then slits the throat and then blows out his nostril on Angle. Lovely. Goes for the headbutt, but Angle goes up to the second rope and hits a belly to belly. Oh, it's so beautiful. I love that move to death, but somehow Benoit kicks out at 2 to the crowd's amazement. Kurt goes for the Angle slam, but it's counted into a crossface as the crowd explodes in delight. Angle can barely touch the ropes, but he makes it, and he was very, very close to tapping. But then, out of that crossface, Benoit then locks in the ankle lock and pulls Angle away. The crippler's using his own move, but Angle then rolls through and gets one in too. But then Benoit rolls through and locks in a crossface soon after that. Angle then rolls through for 2, but once again the crossface then gets locked in by Benoit. Jesus Christ, hold and counter hold, this is amazing. Jesus, Angle looks to tap, but he rolls through and hits an Angle slam. But after that exchange, he is spent. He crawls for the cover, but Benoit kicks out. Angle takes the straps down, you know what's coming, and he locks in the ankle lock, but Benoit rolls through, catches Angle for the cover, but gets 2. Benoit goes for the Germans, but once more, Angle switches into one of his own, with Benoit then turning that one around and turning Angle inside out. Jesus Christ, this is incredible. And the crowd are loving this, and even the commentators are as well. They are pumping themselves for it. Benoit climbs to the top rope as the crowd chant his name, and he hits the swan dive headbutt from one side of the ring to the other. It is majestic. Jesus Christ. And he connects right onto the back of Angle's head. He covers, but Angle kicks out. Jesus Christ. Benoit goes for the crossface. Angle fights out and alley-oops Benoit into the turnbuckle and hits the Angle slam. Covers, but Benoit kicks out. The crowd is absolutely losing it, and so is Angle at this point. Angle gets Benoit to his feet, but a counter is then laid into the crossface. The crowd are losing their shit. Angle is about to tap, but he rolls through into the ankle lock. Benoit tries to fight out, but it's still locked in. He pushes Angle out of it, but Angle, like a pit bull, just goes straight back to it. Benoit fails to counter it again. The hold is on tight. Benoit's writhing in pain as Angle then wraps the grapevine. The crippler can't go anywhere. He has to give up. He submits. And this titanic battle is over. Kurt Angle beat Benoit on his own and retained the title in 19 minutes and 49 seconds, which went by very, very quickly. Benoit is then given a standing ovation by the Boston crowd as he limps to the back, which was well deserved. And what a contest! Ladies and gentlemen, this was incredible. This was one of the best matches I have ever seen. I remember enjoying it a bunch many years ago, but my God, is it still an absolute blast to watch. There is no doubt about how great this is. It's a battle of one-upsmanship and technical skill, executed so crisply, so smoothly, and paced to utter perfection. With hold to counter hold, on pretty much every move, momentum shifting every minute. You couldn't tell who was going to win, and it was exhilarating. Even though I knew the result because I've got WrestleMania 19 coming up in 2 months' time for the flashback, and my own memory will dictate, the match was still unpredictable. That's how incredible this was. And as the match built, it just got even better. The crowd got into it. Both men pulled out all the stops, all their finishers, taking risks, without moving away from their core moveset. Outside of that apron DDT, there was nothing different, but the one thing they did was show how athletic, how beautiful this art form of professional wrestling is, and it was magic. It was magic. And the crowd were respectful to start with, but once they realised Benoit had a chance here, they lost their minds. They were very rabid, they were loud as hell. They realised after the bout they saw prior, which was utter garbage, they had witnessed something superb. It told a brilliant story, it showed great athleticism, and it was just great. As two of the all-time best just had a great straight bout for the title, and it was great. They didn't care that Angle was a heel at this point. By the time the match ended, they were like, okay, Angle's a heel, but who gives a shit? He wrestles really well. And you know what? It provides a real comparison for chalk and cheese for the main event of Raw. Because that main event was chalk, inedible and utterly horrible on the palate. This was like cheese, very, very well matured cheese. It was smooth, and it was so good and so... Oh my God, this match. I'm not doing this match justice by describing it, by hyping it, by throwing every hyperbole at the sun at it. Ladies and gentlemen, this match showed why SmackDown won over Raw in the first year of the brand extension. This match is utterly superb. The bookers knew what they were doing to make sure that the talent could go out there and showcase their quality. None of the overcomplicated, overbooked bullshit that Raw was doing. This was wrestling poetry, a wrestling masterpiece. And ladies and gentlemen, this is about the most certain 5-star I am ever going to give, and I will be happy to rewatch this over and over again. And I implore you to do so, because my descriptions do not justify this. I don't care that I've just described it all in depth for you, because me describing it for words will only go so far. You have to go to the network, go find your DVD of the Rumble 03 and watch this thing. Watch it. Hell, even find the Benoit collection of Hard Knocks if you've still got that thing, and watch it. This is beautiful. It's an unbelievable contest. I'm never going to be sick of it. If you want to see great mat and chain wrestling in WWE without having to be overly complicated or over the top, this is what you need to see. And the thing is, I can go on about this match for ages. The thing is, though, the video's gone on long enough already, and I need to talk about the main event. So, let's get right to the 2003 Royal Rumble match. Now, we know that Brock Lesnar is going to be in this thing. He won the match early on in the evening. The other two things you should make a note of if you are watching this is that The Undertaker was scheduled to return at this pay-per-view, and he's not yet returned, so logically he's in the Rumble match, right? On the other hand, Shawn Michaels allocated himself the #1 spot, and Chris Jericho, his feud and rival at the time, after Survivor Series it stemmed from there and just got ever more intense. Overall, he picked #2 after winning an over-the-top battle royal the week before the show to ensure that he could try to compete with Michaels. Oh, this is going to be fun. And lo and behold, ladies and gentlemen, in the end, Brock Lesnar struck it lucky, getting the #29 slot, and he eliminated a returning Undertaker last to win the Rumble match after 53 minutes and 41 seconds, meaning that the Beast, the next big thing, is ready to main event his debut WrestleMania. In the past, these Rumble matches in the Flashback series and general pay-per-view reviews in total would usually get an in-depth analysis because they usually are around 3-star, if not slightly higher. That's how they usually go. Sometimes, however, the matches in the Rumble itself do not live up to the hype, and I understand that while it had a lot of name value for the time, and it had some story building through Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho's elements, and all that, honestly, there were a few mark-out moments, a few laugh-worthy moments, and some story building, but in all fairness, this match was a sandwich, which had the bread of Shawn Michaels Jericho at the beginning, and Undertaker Lesnar at the end, of course their feud, bookending the Rumble that really just didn't go anywhere. The ring just piled up with pretty much half the field at one point as they were waiting for the big stars to come out, and there wasn't that much to come through. Nothing much happened. These names came through. Sure, we had a few good bits of moves, and Matt and Jeff Hardy staring off, knowing that one was on Raw, one was on SmackDown, and Shawn Michaels coming back in to take Jericho out, and you know, all that, but the match just at times had nothing happening. Sure, when Taker and Lesnar entered, they cleaned house and destroyed everybody, but this was a very slow Rumble. It was 50 minutes, but it felt incredibly underwhelming and just incredibly long, and there was a few moments of athleticism and good moving by Rey Mysterio and Edge and others to bring this match to life, but there were also no surprise entrants, which just hurt the rating that I use. Of course, as you don't know, I use a specific system for this. Surprise entrants count a lot, and as you can see, it did not match up. And the thing is, I got some enjoyment out of this match, periodically, especially during the early stage watching some of WWE's best at the time from Raw and SmackDown mostly, duke it out and keep me on my toes, but once Edge got eliminated, this match sunk and didn't live up to my nostalgic hype, because I remembered this match being very entertaining, and I was sadly disappointed. I will say it did okay, but that doesn't translate well to a very good rating, at least for a Rumble. Overall, though, it was the crowd as well as the time that saved this match. If it weren't on any longer than 55 plus minutes, it would have been overdone. The crowd were happy. They were excited, they liked the wrestlers in there, they liked what they were seeing, and after the WWE Championship match, nothing could really bring them down, really. So they kept the match going, and it was quite entertaining from that point on. But honestly, without their sizable pops when needed, and the length going okay, the pace was just really sluggish, there was no eliminations regularly, and all in all, in terms of the Rumbles I reviewed on this channel, no Rumble match I have reviewed outside of one has gotten lower than 3-star, which includes roughly the 2011, 2012 and 2013 Rumbles. Despite how shit they were, they still had some good points in time, which made their ratings in the scale I give go up. However, this Rumble scores equal with 2014's Rumble. And even that one had positives, ladies and gentlemen, despite how rubbish that was. This Rumble match gets 2 stars. It may seem harsh, but when you've got a Rumble that ran on empty for most of it, it comes through. It was a solid below average match, but for the Rumble, this is quite disappointing, and very few Rumble matches have probably rated lower than this, but honestly, when you've got ratings in the last few years in real life, and a few prior that were upwards in the 4-star category, 2003's Rumble just looks very bad, and it doesn't leave me feel really happy, and it was very predictable, because once Lesnar was in there, you knew he was going to win, and it just made me feel sad following the Angle Benoit bout, because that was brilliant, and it just took the wind out of my sails as we ended this show with Brock Lesnar going on to WrestleMania, which we were all looking forward to, but I just wish this Rumble match could have been better. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for me to give my thoughts, my final thoughts, on this show, and I do this with bated breath because nostalgia can be a very terrible thing, and this event is the reason for it. You see, this was the first Rumble pay-per-view that I bought, and I loved it back in 2003-04 when I bought this. I felt excited. I loved this pay-per-view. I felt it had great energy, the matches I really was into, and the music, the theme song was great, and it still holds up today, but I look back on this event now, some 13, 14 years later, I look back on it, And I questioned my sanity of how I enjoyed it so much back then. Was it because I didn't know any better and just lapped up whatever wrestling laid in my lap? Yeah, probably. Because I look back and question my sanity because this pay-per-view, outside of one piece of brilliance, was rubbish. It was terrible. And the thing is, when you look at why, it says a lot. The Rumble had its moments, but was overall disappointing. The opening contest was okay. The title bout for the tag teams was a standard tag match that did little to actually excite. The women's match and the world title matches were farces. Horrible displays of how rubbish wrestling can be. And I've already mentioned, the Benoit Angle match was a classic. A piece of wrestling art. I will say this card did one thing, that it made SmackDown's top 3 guys and made them look stunning. It proved why SmackDown was the better show. Out and out it did, even though their other match on this card in one case was pretty bad. It at least had that to buff it up. And the thing is, the rest of this card just flat out stunk or fell flat, and it's disappointing. I've got to say, because I was looking forward to this show. I was looking forward to it because I had such good memories. But the thing is, I'd heard so much over the years since then of how bad the Steiner versus Triple H match was that when it proved so, I was disgusted. I hadn't seen it in a long time and it proved itself to be rubbish. And the Dawn Marie Toy Wilson match, that was also horrible too. And I forgot how horrible that was because I blanked out of my bloody mind for the storyline. And the thing is, when looking at this show and the Friday Flashback series, it's not as bad as December to Dismember or even Bad Blood 97 in terms of terribleness. It is close to the latter, however, in ratings. But thanks to a worse balance of poor matches, Bad Blood 97 is actually worse than this one. And you know what? Like I've said, I thought I was going to enjoy this, but I wasted my time with 3/4 of this show. This show was good, really good, for about 20-something minutes. And about 6 minutes, maybe a bit more for the other 2 matches that were below average, but okay to a degree. And there has a little bit to make me say, okay, for half of it, it wasn't too bad, but seriously. The Rumble disappointed despite getting 2 stars, and just overall, this event was just disappointing, and I feel deflated. I really do. I really do feel deflated because I really wanted to enjoy this. But alas, nostalgia ruined this for me, really, because it turns out it wasn't as good as I thought. If you have to go see one match, go see Angle Benoit. It's imperative, and as I've stated, if you want to torture yourself, go watch the world title match before it, because the chalk and cheese comparison is ridiculous. It really is. Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, the Royal Rumble 2003 receives a 2.5 out of 10 rating, and this has been a very disappointing show, but thankfully for me, not just in 2 months' time we get to look at WrestleMania 19, but next month we have fully loaded 2000 to look at, and that's apparently an amazing show. So, with that in mind, maybe the sacrifice of watching this pay-per-view right after Canadian Stampede a month later may not be so bad. They always say you've got to go through bad things to get the good things in life, and well, this was one of those. Honestly, I just can't shrug my disappointment. If you want to watch this show, do so, but you're going to be in for, outside of one match, quite a poor night of wrestling to see. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The 2003 Royal Rumble Friday Flashback for March 2017 is done, and sorry I sound so dejected, but I really wanted this one to be good, because I had such good memories of it, and well, my disappointment is just palpable, really. I've just got to move on and just look forward to the next lot of pay-per-views I get to watch and all the new videos I have to make, which is what this is all about, really. What did you think about this show, though, everyone? Do you think it was as bad as I say? don't think I'll be challenged on that. Put your views in the comment section. I'll be glad to read and respond. And if you want to keep up with everything the channel is doing, ensure you click that bell icon and the subscribe button, because we have the fully loaded 2000 flashback in late April. We also have the WrestleMania 33 review coming out at the beginning of April. And for all you bronies out there, we have the special little video coming towards the end of this month in a few weeks' time. It's going to be pretty damn awesome. Along with, of course, the Fur Fighters playthrough still going as it does. We're reaching quite a good point in it right now. Nonetheless, everybody, I hope you've all enjoyed. I've just got to focus on what next, because I just want to put the show and this review behind me. Because seriously, the disappointment in my heart right now is just too much. I have been Freddie Thomas, you've been people listening. This has been a Friday Flashback pay-per-view review for the CC Network, and I'll see you all next time.